Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm Dan Chikrochi, and I'm the Content Marketing Manager at Beyond Type 2, where our mission is to help people with diabetes stay alive and thrive. It is my pleasure to introduce Nina Cash, who is breaking barriers and challenging stereotypes, all while living with type 2 diabetes. Nina, who has a doctorate in educational leadership, is a retired university associate dean with over 30 years of experience in education and workforce development. After retiring, Nina made the decision to make modeling her encore career. A co-winner of the 2023 Swim Search Open Casting Call, Nina made her Sports Illustrated swimsuit debut in the 2024 edition. Her journey from academia to modeling showcases a profound shift in an industry known for its age limitations. Nina lives in Long Beach, California with her husband and is the proud mom of 3 daughters. Nina, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. So I first want to talk to you about your type 2 diabetes. When were you diagnosed? How did it feel when you first received the diagnosis of type 2 diabetes?
When I was 26 years old and pregnant with my daughter, I got gestational diabetes. Having diabetes run on both sides of my family, my mother's side and my father's side, I kind of suspected that perhaps I would get diabetes at some time, especially because I had gestational diabetes at 26 with my daughter. Of course, when I was pregnant, monitored it, I had to go on a strict diet and whatnot. But I made sure after that I would be mindful of the signs of diabetes, right? And so I monitored that my whole life. And then when I hit 50 years old, bam, had a lot of the signs, went in, and sure enough, I was diagnosed. Yeah.
So since you were diagnosed, I mean, how do you manage your type 2 diabetes? Do you do multiple daily injections? Are you on a CGM or an insulin pump?
I'm very lucky, Dan, in that I'm on metformin. So
Mhm.
I'm able to, excuse me, manage it by metformin. I'm on 1,000 milligrams. And the interesting thing is that everybody always says, Nina, you can't have diabetes. Look at you. You're in shape. You eat healthy and all that stuff. And I'm like, well, mine is genetics because it runs on both sides of the family. Unfortunately, and then fortunately, I will have to be on metformin probably for the rest of my life just to maintain my A1C levels. Um, you know, in order to maintain it, Dan, I don't make myself crazy. And what do I mean by that? I eat what I want, but I do everything in moderation. Okay, I can have a cookie, but I'm not going to eat the whole bag of cookies. God knows I could, but I won't. I love me some ice cream and some strawberry shortcake, but I will draw the line. Um, but yeah, I don't, I didn't want to get myself into that whole guilty of like, oh, I can't eat that or I can't do this because my diabetes is going to go up. Everything in moderation. Um, Lucky for me too, I don't have to check my levels daily. At the very beginning, I did, but because I've been able to maintain now for the last like 3 years, my levels have been hovering around again 6.0 to about 6.7, which is a good range, right? We know. So, yeah, I've been fortunate, very fortunate.
So when it comes to using food to manage your type 2 diabetes and your health in general, what's a typical breakfast? What's a typical lunch, dinner? Any snacking during the day?
Sure. Thanks for asking that. I make sure I have breakfast in the morning because I need that fuel. A lot of people say, well, I don't eat breakfast. I start with lunch. Well, for me, I cannot. I have to have my breakfast. So usually I'll have oatmeal and I'll have some oat milk as well. I'll do like cranberries and maybe some fresh strawberries. I'll throw in some protein as well. I do like eggs and bacon. So I really need to fill up on that energy. So the protein's very, very important for me for breakfast. I graze during the day. So I really don't have like a heavy lunch or a heavy dinner. That's not how I roll. I find for me, little tiny snacks during the day really fill me up. And also, Dan, I try not to eat past 6 o'clock. Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing, I know, but I've been testing this, my husband and I, for the last, I would say probably 8 months or so. Yeah. Where we don't eat past 6. And I can tell you, I wake up in the morning feeling like I have more energy. And I don't know if it's a psychological thing, and I'm certainly going to have to dig deeper into the science behind it. But I feel so much better not eating after 6 p.m.
And
So,
what role does exercising play in the management of your type 2 diabetes?
I love to be active every day, and my activities vary. I don't have like a regime, if you will, or regular exercise. Like I don't say I wake up at 5 and I run on my treadmill or I go on my Peloton. Whatever I feel like in the morning that I wanted to be active, that's what I do. Whether it's riding my Peloton, whether it's walking on my treadmill, whether it's walking my dogs. My husband's a professional dancer and I love dancing. So sometimes we will just break out in our living room, put on my 80s music and jam. So it's whatever I feel like. Yeah, I play tennis too. I was on the tennis team in high school and first part of college, and yeah, so whatever I feel like that day.
So, when you were in college, around that time, I understand that you went into modeling, and you took you came back to that to modeling after a 30-year break from it. Can you share a little bit about your journey back into the modeling world?
Sure. So, yeah, I was discovered when I was in high school. Couldn't model because my parents were kind of very strict. So I did some modeling after high school and probably the first part of junior college. And then I just, life happened, got married, had a baby, and needed a quote unquote real job. So I fell into education and higher education and actually fell into it and fell in love with it. And then had about a 30 plus year career in that. And then decided after my retirement to dip my toes back into the modeling pool, kind of something that I didn't finish and I would like to see, what would happen. And Dan, little did I know that I'd be thrown in the deep end of the pool and riding this wave of Sports Illustrated, at 57 years old with gray hair. I'm retired. For all intents and purposes, I'm a quote senior citizen with a disability. So, but here I am in Sports Illustrated.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about how you ended up in this year's Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue?
Sure, it started in Australia. My husband is Australian, and we hadn't been back to Australia in about 3 years due to the pandemic. So this was in 2022. So in December of 2022, we go back to Australia. We're with family and friends, and it's their summertime, right? They're the opposite seasons of America. And, growing up in a conservative Filipino military Catholic family, I was very modest and very reserved. So if I were to wear a bathing suit, it would have been a one piece. Quite frankly, probably a muumuu, but that's just how I rolled. And so when we got to Australia, I forgot a bathing suit. So we went to the local mall by my mother-in-law's house. And because it was their summertime, all the bathing suits were pretty much sold out. And literally, the only bathing suit that was left in my size was a two-piece leopard print bikini. I thought, okay, well, you know what? Why not? I said, my husband and I, we love to do early morning walks on the beach, like 6 a.m. sunrise. And I said, no one's going to see me. It's all good. I'll just get it so that we can have, do our walks on the beach. So fast forward to my husband took some candid shots that evening. We are going through his phone and he's like, look, honey. And I looked at it and I said, hey, not too shabby for this gray hair retired senior citizen. Hey, and so we started this banter back and forth. And I said, I'm going to be the next Sports Illustrated rookie, just kind of tongue in cheek and because listen, I've been in education. This would be a totally 180 for me. And then I remembered Kathy Jacobs. She was 57 years old and she was named a rookie, like I think in oh God, was it 2000 and what were like 18 or 19 or something like that. So I looked online and lo and behold, the application period was still valid. They were still accepting applications. And so at that moment, I thought, okay, I'm retired. This could be an encore career for me. Let's go. And I cobbled together those pictures and did a video with my husband's cell phone. And I submitted the application. And then 3 months later, I get an email from Sports Illustrated. Congratulations, Nina. Out of the thousands of people who applied all over the world, you made the top 24. And clearly, Dan, I thought my family was playing a joke on me. I'm like, clearly. But nope, I made the top 24, then I made the top 12, top 7, and then here I am a rookie. So
That must be
crazy
absolutely
weather.
anxiety inducing. See, I would just want to be told that I was the winner. I wouldn't want to like know that there was 1,000 applicants and then now I'm in the
Yeah,
top 25 and now I'm in the top. Just tell me if I won or not. So,
yeah.
so congratulations. That's fantastic. And what, you went to Portugal or where did you? They flew you
Yeah.
somewhere and you did the photo shoot.
Yeah, it was in beautiful Porto, Portugal, and it was in late December, and it was just, the whole experience was magical. I like to describe it as, when you're adulting, Dan, there's very few things, at least in my life, that have made me feel like that 5-year-old the night before Christmas. All the anticipation and the butterflies and the excitement of the day to come, and that's what this whole journey with Sports Illustrated, Swimsuit, and especially this modeling, this my new encore career has felt like. So when I was in Porto, Portugal, having all those wonderful feelings of like the night before Christmas, so that when I was actually shooting uh, with, in my bathing suits and stuff, felt like I was opening up my Christmas presents and it was Christmas Day. It was just so cool. It was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. And what was, I mean, when the issue came out, what was that like for you? I mean, how did your life?
I'm gonna say like a pinch me moment, disbelief. Like, are you kidding me? Because like going back to like the '80s and stuff, never in a gazillion years would I think I would be in Sports Illustrated, even in my 20s or 30s, let alone pushing almost 60
Mhm.
with gray hair and being embraced and welcomed by SI family and just people from around the world who have direct messaged me and just said, you're inspiring me to, like, even if I don't do swimsuits, or modeling, you're inspiring me to do an encore career. So it's cool. It's very cool.
So that, I mean, the fact that you became a model an age where most people don't become modeler, and that you had
Yeah.
success as a model, is kind of where I want to transition to to the next part of the interview. Beyond Type Two runs a stigma campaign every year
Mm.
that aims to highlight the stigma that all people with diabetes face, whether it's related to your age as a model or the fact that you live with Type Two diabetes and you're a model. What
Yeah.
challenges or obstacles have you faced in the modeling industry, and how have you overcome them while living with type 2 diabetes and while being at an age that models typically don't have a career?
Right. Very good question. I think for me, eating's important to me. I will say this, when I was first diagnosed, working at a university, there's a lot of stuff going on. And so I would find myself not eating, as a lot of people do, right? When they're busy, they forget lunch because they've got these timelines and different things. And that was really, really unhealthy for me, extremely unhealthy. So, having that experience at the university and me saying in meetings, pardon me, in front of like 25 people, but I have to eat, and disclosing that I have diabetes, right? Was difficult for me because I didn't want to be seen as someone who needed, what's the word I'm looking for? Special circumstances or special treatment because I had type 2 diabetes. But then I realized, I'm like, you know what? I got to take care of myself because no one's going to take care of me. So I think some of the stigma was put on to myself by thinking that if I voiced that I have diabetes, then somehow I would be treated differently, not shunned. That's not the feeling. It was just they would make so many exceptions that wouldn't be fair to other people, if that makes sense, Dan. Um, and in the modeling world, I've had to stop a shoot and say, I'm so sorry, I need to eat something because I could feel myself, getting lightheaded and just not feeling good. But luckily, I think because there's been a lot of information about type 2 diabetes right now, especially commercials and different things, people are more aware of it and they're more accepting to people who say, like me, when I'm shooting something, can we take a pause? I'm so sorry, but I need to grab something to eat.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What have you encountered any challenges in teaching your loved ones or friends or associates about type 2 diabetes and what it's like for you? There's a general misconception out there that people with type 2 diabetes are overweight, that they let themselves go,
Yes.
that they're lazy. Have you encountered any of those stigmas in your life living with type 2?
Yeah, when I get tired, and we all know what that's kind of like with people who have type 2 diabetes, people say, well, snap it, get more rest. Or what's wrong with you? Or, I get the brain fuzz sometimes. People with type 2 diabetes, you can get brain fuzz, and I would get that as well. Certainly if I didn't eat, when I needed to eat. But yeah, I think the whole stigma about people with diabetes are overweight, they don't exercise, and then I'm kind of like the reverse. People are shocked. And they're like, no, maybe you were misdiagnosed. You can't be, Nina. There's no way, because of what people think a type 2 diabetic looks like. So I'm kind of happy in a way that people see me in a bathing suit, although like I said, I'm very modest. So it's been an adjustment for me. But it's showing that diabetes, type 2 diabetics come in all shapes, sizes, and forms. And it's not just this photo of someone who looks like they're overweight, someone who looks like they don't eat healthy. I'm kind of the opposite of that, and I still have type 2 diabetes.
Has how do you prioritize your mental health when living with diabetes and living with a type of diabetes that someone who looks like you typically people just don't put the two together and think that someone that looks like you could have it. How do you prioritize your mental health as you navigate life with type 2 diabetes?
Yeah, that's a really great question, because I think a lot of times people just focus on the physical part of it than the mental part of it. I'm so fortunate, Dan, that you've invited me on this show, and that I'm able to have a platform now through Sports Illustrated, through my Encore career, to talk about type 2 diabetes. I think sometimes people, type 2 diabetics, could have like a shame attached to it, because perhaps they thought that because they didn't eat right, because they're overweight, they got this disease. And again, that's part of it, could be true, but then look at me, I don't fit that narrative. I don't fit that picture. So for me, when I first was diagnosed, I thought, not that it was a death sentence, but like, oh my gosh, my life is completely going to change. I'm going to have to, my eating habits and whatnot. And yes, it did. But it wasn't like a death sentence. I'm still living, I'm still thriving. So mentally, I have to think about the good things that are happening through me having type 2 diabetes, and now having this wonderful platform to showcase that there's other looks to type 2 diabetes, physical looks to type 2 diabetes.
And how has your family and friends and support systems, your community, how have they helped you in living with type 2 diabetes and in helping you cope with any stigmas that might be associated with having type 2 diabetes?
Oh, my family's been great. My husband's like a real big cheerleader, and make sure he's so wonderful. He makes breakfast in the morning because he knows that I need that. So he's wonderful. So every morning without fail, when he's in town, he makes breakfast for me, and that's our time to sit down and talk and connect. And my daughters are wonderful as well. They're advocates for me in terms of saying, when people say your mom doesn't have diabetes, there's no way. And my daughters say, yeah, she does. And it, diabetes doesn't look like the typical poster child that the media has always shown it to be.
Hmm.
So everybody's been very encouraging. My friends as well.
Hmm.
Definitely. Yeah.
Well, there certainly is a lot of ignorance around type 2 diabetes, and even in some areas of the healthcare circles. What do you think that healthcare providers can do to help reduce the stigma that's associated with type 2 diabetes?
Yeah, I think that a little bit more research. Certainly, the endocrinologists are wonderful, right? They do a lot of research on that. That's part of their practice. But I think when I went to my regular doctor and I said, I really need to have a test done because I think I might have diabetes. Oh, you don't look like it, Nina. You don't. Are you sure? And I'm like, no, I need to have a test done. And sure enough, it came back. Because again, once again, I go back to, I didn't present everything. I wasn't overweight. So I think that the medical community, when you have somebody come in that requesting, certainly with my family history too, that you listen to the person and you provide that medical assistant that they're requesting. Just even if it's just, I don't want to say to placate, but just run it because you don't know, and at least check it off the box. that they don't have diabetes, if you will, right? But in my case, I did. So I think more awareness, more research, definitely.
And how can the fashion and modeling industry better support people who are older, who are not of European descent, who are living with health conditions like type 2 diabetes? What more can they do, in your opinion?
Gosh, well, I believe that there's a lot of people in the industry right now that maybe have type 2 diabetes that haven't disclosed it, right? Because they don't have to. They don't have to. That's their prerogative. But I think in the fashion world, I think they're doing a great job because the fashion world, certainly from the 80s to now, has totally done a 180. Okay, because I wouldn't be in a magazine at with gray hair, a retired person with gray hair in my age, in a fashion magazine. Like at the beginning, at the top of this hour, you said that was typically uh, for the that of the younger generation. So I have to say that I haven't really experienced any type of total discrimination within this entertainment world or the fashion world with regards to me personally having type 2 diabetes.
So, what message would you like to share with others who are living with type 2 diabetes, especially those who are in demanding careers like modeling?
I would say if you feel comfortable, disclose the fact that you have type 2 diabetes. Educate people on what type 2 diabetes looks like and feels like. Don't apologize for having type 2 diabetes. Embrace it. How wonderful for you to maybe have a platform to educate other people. Because again, and I sound like, a broken record, but diabetes comes in all shapes and sizes, and you don't have to fit that mold. And we need to have people be more aware that it exists and people around you have it. Um, yeah, yeah,
Do you have
yeah.
any social channels that you would like to share with our viewers?
Yeah, it's Nina Cash. So it's Instagram Nina Cash. I haven't mastered the TikTok yet, and I call it the TikTok, Dan, because I'm from that
Yeah.
generation. I'm like, so yeah,
Yeah. Well, Nina,
yeah.
I'd like to thank you for joining us and sharing your insights, your journey as a model living with type 2 diabetes, and your courageous efforts to combat the stigma associated with it are it's very inspiring. And to our viewers, I'd like to thank you for tuning in. I'm Dan Chikrochi of Beyond Type 2. Stay tuned for more insightful and enlightening interviews that will empower you to live the best possible life with diabetes. See you soon.